I've been managing properties for over a decade for homes, which are in the suburbs and rural areas all over Alaska, and I've seen it all: late rent, broken windows, tenants who disappear in the middle of the night. So when Emily moved in with her husband, it was a relief to finally have someone responsible. She was polite, quiet, and paid rent early every month. She kept to herself, but that was fine with me. Not everyone wants to be best friends with their landlord. She worked at some tech company in the town nearby and mentioned she had odd hours. She told me she liked how private the unit was, on the edge of town, surrounded by woods. The perfect tenant, really. I did not speak with her husband. She mainly paid the rent, handled any problems which came up, and spoke to me the most. It was like her husband didn't exist. A few weeks ago, Emily sent me a text about a leaky faucet. It was late, almost 10 p.m., but I figured I'd take a look the next morning, as I did with all my tenants who had issues this late. She insisted it was urgent and practically begged me. She said the dripping was driving her crazy, so I grabbed my toolkit and drove over. Her car wasn't in the driveway, which wasn't unusual, as she'd said she worked late sometimes. I let myself in with my spare key and called out to let her know I was there. No answer. The place was spotless. Spotless. No dishes in the sink, no shoes by the door, not even a stray piece of mail on the counter. It felt like a model home, not somewhere someone actually lived. It very quickly put me off ease. I just wanted to get the job done and leave. I found the culprit, a leaky faucet, as she said, in the kitchen. It wasn't anything major, just a loose valve. As I tightened it, I noticed something odd, a faint smell, metallic and sour, coming from the garbage disposal. It was just so unusual, a horrific smell that I had never smelt before. Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a flashlight and peered down the drain. At first, I couldn't tell what I was looking at, just a wet, dark mass. But then I realized it was hair, long matted hair clogging the disposal. I pulled back, gagging. It was none of my business, I told myself. Maybe she'd tried to wash out a wig or something. People do weird things, right? Still, the smell stuck with me. That night, all I could think about was the hair. I had a nightmare greet me with open arms as I rested, and it was something I don't think I'll forget for a long time, as I saw something slowly climb out of that drain. It was so disturbing to watch its mangled figure like a broken puppet, with bones and muscles tied on visible under the pale skin, which laid over it like a bedsheet. Just before it began moving towards me, I awoke to an alarm, 7 a.m. The next day, Emily texted to thank me for fixing the faucet. I wanted to ask about the hair, but I didn't. It just wasn't my place, and that nightmare was just my consequence of curiosity. Unfortunately, I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, as I was filling paperwork, I pulled up her rental application. Everything checked out: steady job, good credit, no criminal record, but something nagged at me, a gut feeling I couldn't shake. I decided to look her up online. Her social media was sparse, just a couple of work-related posts, and an old vacation photo, nothing unusual. Then I searched her name in various news sites, and there it was, an article from 6 years ago. Emily Rivers, local woman involved in brutal home invasion. The details were horrifying. She'd been attacked in an apartment by a man late at night. She managed to fight him off, but he escaped before the police arrived. The invader was caught and sent to prison on breaking and entering, but released last month. I felt a chill run down my spine. No wonder she was so private, I thought. No wonder she chose a place out in the woods. She was probably still terrified he'd come back for her. A few days later, Emily called me, not texted, called. She sounded panicked. Said she thought someone had been in her house while she was at work. She couldn't explain it, just that things felt off. I told her I'd come over right away. When I arrived, she was pacing in the driveway, her face pale. She told me she thought someone had moved her things, just little stuff, like the way her couch pillows were arranged, or how her toothbrush was angled in the holder. Nothing big, nothing missing, but she knew. I checked the locks, all secure, the windows were shut tight. There was no sign of forced entry. I told her it was probably her imagination, but she didn't look convinced. Before I left, she asked if I'd install a second deadbolt on the front door. I said I would. That was 2 nights ago. This morning, I was about to install a secondary lock. Instead, I got a call from the police. They said there'd been an incident at the property. When I arrived, the place was crawling with officers. One of them pulled me aside. "Are you the landlord?" he asked. I nodded, my stomach in knots. "We found a body," he said, "in the crawl space under the house." My mind reeled. A body? Who? He hesitated. A man, we're still identifying him, but it looks like he's been there a while. A while? How long? I thought back to Emily's spotless house, her unease, the second deadbolt. That's when I saw her sitting in the back of a police car. She looked calm, too calm. Her hands rested neatly in her lap. Her head tilted slightly as if she were listening to some far-off melody. I walked closer, and she turned to look at me. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes, those dark unblinking eyes, pierced right through me, and then I remembered the article. Not the headline, the photo. Emily sitting on the front steps of her old apartment, her face pale and tear-streaked, and behind her officers wheeling out a stretcher with a man on it. I'd assumed he was the intruder, the attacker, but the article didn't say that. I must have been too tired to realize, but looking back, the headline just didn't sound right. The article began with, "A 19-year-old man was found in a crawl space inside of his own home after a supposed home invasion. Emily Rivers, a local dentist, was arrested on suspicion of murder and arrested for breaking and entering." I stared at Emily in the police car. She didn't look away. Her lips parted just slightly, like she was about to speak, but she didn't have to, because I finally understood. She wasn't the victim of a home invasion.